Hi guys, my name's Sephiran Roberts, or you might know me as Candy if you know me from Twitch, or Tendo if you know me from MKP. Welcome. This video is really just an introduction into a series of videos that I want to produce to explain my journey through life and the continuous evolution of that journey as it progresses. And the true intention of this is just to be honest. It's really a healing piece for me, and hopefully it can also be a healing piece for others as well. And if nothing else, it's a way for you to get a in-depth look at the journey of me, of what I've been through, and the insights I've gained, and the lessons and experiences that I've had to be very effective to create an enormous amount of change and impact in my life and clarity, and really relieve me of a lot of my anxiety and pain and frustration and just absolute disgust with how our society operates and everything. You know, it's quite amazing story in my opinion, and it truly is kind of a phoenix rising out of the ashes, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. I have no idea, and I'm excited to share that journey with you. So welcome to the channel. I'm gonna pretty much be going through my entire life story. So we're gonna start off in my childhood, kind of discuss a little bit about you know, my background as far as you know, my family dynamic that I was raised in, and then just kind of go through and really leading up to yeah, my biggest depression I've ever dealt with in this last year, and my experience of, you know, hitting that bottom and then being able to decide to make changes, meaningful changes in my life, and continue to evolve and transform my own beliefs and perceptions of myself so I can be a better gift and bless this world rather than feeling so disconnected from it. So I guess we're just gonna start it off. So yeah, I was raised in Boulder, Colorado. I was born in Boulder, Colorado. And yeah, we lived up in the mountains, up in Evergreen, in a gorgeous, you know, crazy, awesome estate that both my mom and my dad worked at, and that's how they met. And we once lived on a golf course growing up. But yeah, my early childhoods, up until about 5, I would say, was full of just like excitement and creativity and love and caring as far as my growing up. You know, I had both my parents involved in my life, and I was nurtured and supported very well. And I felt great going into school, you know, elementary. And then once I started interacting with others and really experiencing how other people lived in this world, I began to really realize how different I was raised. And you know, so my mom was a philosopher, an artist, a writer, and an amazing woman. Truly, yeah, just an enlightened human being in all forms. She just absolutely loved life. She could see through anybody's flaws and just kind of really love you for who you are, and see your true self. And I feel incredibly honored and blessed to have a mother like that. I know that, you know, that isn't common by any means. And I don't think I realized that until later on in my life, of course. But because of the way I was raised, it was always this weird, you know, kind of anxiety of how much do I want to share? Like, you know, I don't want to be judged because I've been raised differently, so I'm going to pretend that I've been raised the same as you, but it's not the same. And then, and so I've always, throughout my childhood, throughout my schooling, I always had trouble finding real meaningful friends to connect with, and feeling like I belonged or like was a part of, a social network or community. And it was really difficult throughout elementary. So I'll tell you a few stories about like my elementary school days. Fourth grade, I always loved dressing up. All right, so I'll post some pictures of me when I was a baby, when I get all moved in and get my photo albums back. But you'll see me in, like, just looking fly, bow ties and golf clubs and little hats and all kinds of stuff. So I always enjoyed dressing up, which is very not the case in most children's lives. And so, like, I would wear dress shirts and slacks, and so in fourth grade I actually instead of taking a backpack to school, I took an attaché case. Yeah, and so I was always like that outcast kid that was like, who is this guy? Like, what is wrong with him? And so that kind of started seeping into my own belief of myself. Like, okay, well, I have to guard myself. I can't be myself because everybody thinks I'm weird and different. So the transition into elementary to middle school, I was like, okay, like, I remember that summer, I went home, like, I was kind of fat, and I went home and, like, I completely changed my haircut. I went and got all kinds of, new clothes, and my mom was, like, awesome as far as just helping me out with this, like, new identity I was trying to create for myself so I could be a cool kid in middle school. So I wouldn't have that, I'm an outcast stereotype in middle school. and so, like, I was working out, I was doing push-ups and sit-ups every day and during the summer, and I lost, like, I don't know, 20 pounds or something like that, and I really, felt good and got a new haircut and, this new style and this new, like, attitude to try to fit in. And sure enough, I still encountered the exact same difficulties. I still encountered, judgment and that feeling of just not fitting in. Just throughout my life, I just have never felt like I fit in. And so, that goes into high school. And then, and in the meantime, so my parents divorced when I was very young, 2 years old, but they remained very close. It was a civil, like, it was done with a mediator. It wasn't like a crazy custody battle or anything like that. My mom and dad always worked with it pretty well. But it was difficult growing up because my father was on the other side of the spectrum. He's a very passionate, heartfelt individual that is a big thinker, and he's always thinking of, like, the next big thing, and he's very focused on his work, and he's very committed, and so growing up in that kind of polar opposite, whereas my mom was, if I needed to talk about something, let's talk. Like, I could talk about absolutely anything. It didn't matter, sex or drugs or girls, it doesn't matter. Like, she was my best friend. Like, she was my therapist, pretty much. She was just an amazing support in my life. And then with my dad, as the years progressed, there was a lot of wounds that were developed unintentionally by him. And it was just simple feelings of not being good enough. If he was late to picking me up, and it just felt like like, man, like, all I want to do is make you proud. All I want to do is be a, you know, part of your life. But it always seems like he was just focused on his work. And I understand, and I don't judge him at all. Like, I appreciate everything that he's done in my life, because he's been a huge support. And so, yeah, so then we moved into high school, and high school, you know, hormones are starting to kick in, puberty's, you know, full-fledged. It's, you know, it's chaos. Like, you know, everybody can relate, especially if you're a guy, because, you know, little boys going through puberty is not fun, as far as the interactions that you'll encounter. So, you know, living with my mom, it was like, she was this, you know, Zen monk, if you will, living in her sanctuary, and I was this rebellious, crazy, you know, dickhead teenager that thought he knew everything in life, and you know, we constantly would butt heads and say things that were just horrible to her, and you know, I was just a complete brat, and it got to the point where my mom was like, okay, like, we need to work this out, because I can't handle you in my house. And so at 16, I was able to actually move out. It's crazy to think of. So I moved out. There was an internet arcade that me and my friends always hung out. And this is back in the day when like internet arcades were banging, you know. That was the way you could game on PC. Like, nobody had a gaming PC at home. You had to like actually go to an internet cafe and pay to play on a PC. So I was working there, and I met a couple guys there. They were both 23, and they were looking for a roommate. And I pitched it to my mom, and she went aboard with it. So here I am at 16 years old, with my own apartment, you know, 4 Xboxes and TVs land up, all, you know, connected up in our house, and then we had this internet arcade, and Halo was just like banging, and you know, it was awesome. It was such a good experience, but in the same time, like, I missed my entire, like, the beauty of not having to do any of that, not having to pay rent, not having to have a job, not having to, you know, worry about bills and stuff like that. And so in many ways, I grew up way, way too fast. And that's my biggest recommendation to anyone who is young and you know, hungry to grow up. My recommendation is just breathe, man. Like, just take a step back and just say, hey, I got plenty of time. I'm gonna enjoy this while I can, because, you know, everybody tells me that you're gonna regret it if you grow up too fast, you know. So yeah, and that was high school. High school was much of the same. I became, you know, pretty into pot and became a pothead, and you know, a lot of my ambitions and goals kind of, you know, fizzled out, and I started to just go through the motions. And then a huge event happened in my life. I was driving home from school, or driving to school from lunch, and it was so stupid. Like, me and my friends were like racing to see like who would get to school first, you know, and I have this badass Taurus SHO, 1992 Taurus SHO was my first car, and it's like a super fast Taurus. Like, basically Yamaha racing team made the engine, and they're like, you know, drop the baddest ass engine that you can in this, you know, Taurus. Sports everything, and yeah. Anyway, I'm turning in to school, and I hit some gravel, and I go straight into a chain link fence. and it bends it a little. It doesn't, you know, really damage it. And I'm like, oh shit, you know, fuck. And I drive off and go to school. And like 2 days later, I get called up into the office, and there's the cop. Like, I'm just like, uh-oh, you know. And so they end up actually arresting me on school campus for a hit and run on a fucking fence. And so they book and released me, and I was so ashamed and embarrassed, and it destroyed me. So I talked to my mom. We found a program that would, you know, allow me to get my diploma online, and that's what we did. And so I dropped out. I was still living with my roommates, still working at the internet arcade, and now just doing my schoolwork at home. And in a lot of ways, it was awesome. Like, I wish I would have done this long, you know, prior, like immediately out of middle school, just like online diploma. I could have graduated at like 16 and been off to college and had like a really sweet kind of career path, or, you know, rising. But that didn't happen. And so, you know, I kind of fell into this like badass, you know, teenager who's got a car and an apartment and, like, you know, all these things that made me, you know, so cool in my eyes. And you know, because I had these things, all of a sudden people wanted to be my friends, you know. And you know, I started creating friendships and these social environments that I was really enjoying. And then I graduated, and at 17, I was on my way to pick up my buddy from school, and I'm turning in, and like, I swear I checked and I thought I saw it was clear. It was a white car and it was snowy and it blended in with the snow. I don't know. My brain, you know, I don't know. But I started to turn and I got, you know, head-on collision basically. Got spun around. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I remember bracing so hard because I knew I wasn't wearing a seatbelt that I actually broke the recline on the on the seat. And yeah, it was hard. Yeah, so I totaled my car, and it was just this like horrible like crashing of everything, and that was the first time that I really experienced depression, I would say, is right around 17, where I was like, oh shit, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I can't afford a car from my Netopia. Like, there's no way I can figure this out. And yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. This is much longer than I even thought it was gonna be. But I'm gonna cut it off there and save the next part for the next video. So I do appreciate it. The story will continue of my journey. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please leave a like, leave a comment. It's really good to be back. I miss you guys a ton. I can't wait to get back to streaming and starting to share this kind of passion and knowledge and of myself and confidence of just being who I am. And that's the beauty of all of this, is you know, everyone is searching for the way to just be comfortable with themselves. And I'm lucky enough to have found it at 30. So I look forward to this journey. I truly appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great new year, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, thanks.